Why is it that you work, and work, and work again? You wake before the sun. You return home after dark, your body tired, your mind noisy. And yet your bank account stays the same, or worse, it shrinks. And why is it that others, sometimes quieter, sometimes colder, sometimes not even smarter than you, seem to rise, steadily, predictably, almost unfairly? Today, I will answer that. Not with motivation, not with comfort, but with clarity. And if you stay with me, calmly, without rushing, I promise you this will not flatter you. It will free you. This is Psychology Unlocked. I am Dr. Adam. Listen slowly. Because the truth about money is not economic first. It is psychological. Niccolo Machiavelli never wrote about money directly the way modern gurus do. But he understood power. And money is simply power that has learned to wear numbers instead of crowns. Here is the first uncomfortable principle. You are poor not because you lack effort, but because effort is the currency of the obedient, not the wealthy. This is difficult to hear, I know. Stay with me. From a psychological perspective, most people are trained, from childhood, to believe that moral behavior is rewarded automatically. Work hard, be patient, be loyal, do not complain, do not demand too much. This is not an accident. This is conditioning. Machiavelli observed something disturbing about human systems. They do not reward virtue. They reward usefulness. And usefulness is defined by those who already hold power. In modern society, effort has been romanticized, but value has been systematized. Let me pause here, because this is where many people feel resistance. You may be thinking, but if effort does not create wealth, then what does? Control, position, leverage. And these are psychological decisions long before they are financial ones. The poor mind asks, what should I do next? The wealthy mind asks, where should I place myself so that others must move? Notice the difference. Most people are trapped in what psychology calls reactive identity. They respond to tasks, they respond to demands, they respond to pressure. They feel busy, but they are not powerful. Machiavelli would say, the man who reacts has already lost the game, because reaction means the rules were written by someone else. Here is a brutal truth. The system does not pay you based on how tired you are. It pays you based on how replaceable you are. And replaceability is not about talent alone, it is about structure. In psychology, we speak about perceived indispensability. This is the moment when your absence creates discomfort, delay, loss. Most people never aim for this. They aim to be liked, to be safe, to be agreeable, and so they become invisible. Machiavelli warned against this exact pattern. He understood that being good without being strategic is a form of self-destruction. Look carefully around you. The people who rise financially are not necessarily more ethical or unethical. They are more deliberate. They choose roles where decisions matter more than hours. They choose environments where outcomes matter more than obedience. They choose visibility over comfort. And yes, they are often misunderstood. Now let us slow down, because here comes the part where psychology reveals the trap. Most people secretly fear responsibility more than poverty. This is rarely admitted. Responsibility means exposure. It means blame. It means uncertainty. Poverty, on the other hand, comes with a strange emotional safety. You can always say, I tried, I did my best, the system is unfair, and sometimes that is true. But Machiavelli would ask a colder question. If the system is unfair, why are you still playing by its moral expectations? This is not a call to become cruel, it is a call to become conscious. The wealthy think in terms of incentives, not intentions. They ask, what behavior is rewarded here? Not, what behavior feels right to me? This is pure psychology. Your financial reality is the shadow of your behavioral patterns. If your pattern is to avoid conflict, you will avoid negotiation. If your pattern is to seek approval, you will accept underpayment. If your pattern is to fear loss, you will never risk leverage. Machiavelli understood that fear shapes obedience more reliably than love. And modern workplaces are built on this principle. Fear of being replaced, fear of being judged, fear of stepping out of line. And so people stay poor, not because they are weak, but because they are predictable. Predictability is safety for systems and danger for individuals. Let me say this slowly. If your behavior can be anticipated, your reward can be capped. This is not philosophy. This is behavioral economics. Wealth accumulates where uncertainty is managed, not avoided. But here is where psychology becomes uncomfortable again. To manage uncertainty, you must tolerate temporary instability, emotionally, socially, internally. Most people cannot. They crave certainty, monthly salary, clear instructions, defined roles. Machiavelli would say, certainty is the cage that feels like shelter. Those who become wealthy step into ambiguity early. They learn to negotiate without guarantees. They learn to be disliked without collapsing. They learn to act without applause. And yes, they make mistakes, costly ones. But mistakes teach structure. Obedience teaches nothing. There is another principle here. Money flows toward those who control narratives, not those who follow them. In psychology, narrative control shapes perception of value. If you believe your time is your main asset, you will sell it cheaply. If you believe your decisions are your asset, you will protect them fiercely. The poor mind asks for opportunities. The wealthy mind creates constraints. This sounds paradoxical. Stay with me. Constraints force others to adapt. Scarcity of access, scarcity of attention, scarcity of availability. Machiavelli wrote that power grows when others must adjust to you, not when you endlessly adjust to others. And money follows power. Here is a sentence many people are not ready for. If you are always available, you are never valuable. This is not arrogance, this is positioning. Psychology teaches us that humans assign worth based on perceived rarity and control. Money is no exception. So why are you still poor while others grow rich? Because you were trained to be useful, not influential. Because you were trained to obey systems, not design them. Because you were trained to avoid discomfort, not master it. And none of this is your fault, but all of it is your responsibility. Pause here. Let this settle. Because in the next part, we will go deeper into the specific mental rules Machiavelli would apply to modern money systems. Rules about loyalty, visibility, and emotional distance. And those rules, they change everything. There is a second layer to this problem, and it is quieter, more dangerous. You see, poverty is not maintained by lack of intelligence. It is maintained by misplaced loyalty. This is where Machiavellian psychology becomes uncomfortable for decent people. Most adults remain financially stuck because they attach emotionally to structures that do not attach back to them. Companies, institutions, roles, even people. They confuse participation with protection. From a psychological standpoint, loyalty feels noble. It gives identity. It gives meaning. It gives a story you can tell yourself at night. I belong somewhere. But Machiavelli understood something cold. Systems do not love you. They use you. And when your usefulness declines, so does your value. This is not cruelty. This is pattern recognition. Wealthy individuals understand this early, sometimes painfully early. They do not build identity around who they serve. They build identity around what they control. Most people reverse this. They say, I am loyal, therefore I deserve security. But psychology does not work on deserving. It works on leverage. Leverage is the ability to influence outcomes without direct effort. Money is one form of leverage. Information is another. Position is another. Timing, perhaps the most powerful of all. The poor mind clings to loyalty because it reduces anxiety. The wealthy mind uses loyalty selectively because it increases power. Notice the difference. When you stay loyal to a system that benefits from your silence, your obedience becomes invisible, and invisible effort is never rewarded. This is why so many hardworking people feel betrayed later in life. They say, I gave everything, and the system replies, with nothing. Machiavelli would not be surprised. He warned that those who rely on gratitude are building on air. In psychology, gratitude is emotional. Reward is structural. If there is no structural reason to keep you, you will be released, politely, professionally, and without guilt. Let me slow down here, because this is not about becoming cynical. It is about becoming accurate. Accuracy protects you. The wealthy do not ask, "Who do I belong to?" They ask, "Where am I irreplaceable?" And this leads to the next principle. Visibility beats virtue. This sentence alone offends many good people. I understand why. From childhood, we are taught that if you do the right thing, quietly, consistently, someone will notice. Psychology says otherwise. Humans notice contrast, not consistency. They notice disruption. They notice confidence. They notice boundaries. Machiavelli wrote that power must be seen to be respected. Invisible strength might as well not exist. In modern financial life, this means something very specific. If your contributions are quiet, they will be forgotten. If your presence is soft, it will be overridden. If your boundaries are flexible, they will be tested endlessly. This is not because people are evil. It is because people respond to signals. And signals are psychological, not moral. The wealthy learn to send clear signals early. I decide. I choose. I am not always available. This creates friction, and friction creates respect. Most people fear friction because it threatens social comfort. But comfort has a hidden cost. Comfort keeps you small. Machiavelli understood that those who avoid discomfort are easily controlled, because they will trade power for peace again and again. Now let us talk about emotional distance. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of wealth psychology. The wealthy are not emotionless. They are regulated. They do not let guilt dictate strategy. They do not let fear dictate timing. They do not let approval dictate direction. The poor mind, however, is emotionally reactive. It feels bad saying no. It feels anxious charging more. It feels ashamed wanting more. These emotions are learned, conditioned. In psychology, we call this internalized limitation. You were taught, subtly, that wanting more is greedy, that asserting yourself is rude, that prioritizing yourself is selfish. Machiavelli would smile at this conditioning, because a person who feels guilty for wanting more will never take it. Wealth flows toward those who can tolerate emotional discomfort without collapsing. This is not bravado, it is nervous system control. When you negotiate calmly while your body is tense, when you delay gratification while others rush, when you walk away without explaining yourself, you are practicing power. And power compounds. Another truth. The poor explain themselves too much. They justify. They over-communicate. They soften their needs with apologies. This signals uncertainty. The wealthy speak less, not more. They let silence work. They let absence create pressure. Machiavelli understood silence as a weapon long before modern psychology studied it. Silence forces others to reveal themselves, to overreact, to negotiate against their own interests. If you always fill the space, you give up control. Let me put this simply. If you need to be understood by everyone, you will never be paid by anyone. Money respects clarity, not consensus. Now notice something subtle. The wealthy often appear colder, not because they lack feeling, but because they do not leak it. They choose where emotion belongs. Most people leak emotion everywhere. At work, in negotiation, in planning. And emotion unmanaged becomes weakness. This is not about suppressing humanity. It is about compartmentalizing it. Machiavelli did not hate emotion. He hated naivete. And naivety is expensive. Here is another psychological rule. Those who grow wealthy think in moves, not moods. They act when it is strategic, not when it feels good. They wait when waiting increases leverage. They strike when momentum is on their side. The poor mind acts to relieve anxiety. The wealthy mind acts to shape outcomes. This difference alone explains decades of financial divergence. You feel pressure, they feel timing. You feel urgency, they feel advantage. And this brings us to a painful realization. Many people are poor because they cannot tolerate being misunderstood. They need validation too quickly. But wealth is built in phases where validation is absent. Machiavelli would say, if you need applause, you will serve the crowd. If you can endure silence, The crowd will eventually serve you.
Sit with that.
Because in the next part, we will confront the deepest rule of all, the one about self-image, identity, and why most people sabotage their own financial ascent without ever noticing it.
And once you see that pattern,
You cannot unsee it. There is a deeper reason still, and this one is the most uncomfortable of all. Most people do not stay poor because they lack opportunity. They stay poor because wealth conflicts with their identity. This is where psychology becomes merciless. Your self-image is not a description, it is a limit. You do not rise to what you want, you fall back to what you believe you are allowed to be. And this belief operates quietly, invisibly, shaping every financial decision you make. Machiavelli understood identity long before modern psychology gave it language. He knew that people sabotage themselves not out of weakness, but out of loyalty to who they think they are. Let me explain. If deep down you see yourself as a worker, you will seek instructions. If you see yourself as a supporter, you will avoid leadership. If you see yourself as a good person first, you will hesitate to demand. And hesitation is expensive. In psychology, we call this identity congruence. People unconsciously reject outcomes that feel foreign to their self-concept. So when money begins to appear, they mismanage it. They give it away. They rush decisions. They feel guilty holding it. Not because they are stupid, but because wealth feels unsafe. This is why sudden money often disappears. Lottery winners, athletes, artists, their psychology was not prepared to hold power. Machiavelli would say, "Fortune favors the prepared mind and destroys the innocent one." Here is something few people will tell you. Being poor is familiar. Being wealthy is unfamiliar. And the human nervous system prefers familiarity over improvement. Even pain, if predictable, feels safer than change. So people unconsciously choose financial struggle again and again because it confirms their story. I am the one who tries. I am the one who sacrifices. I am the one who never quite gets there. These stories feel meaningful. They feel moral. They feel clean. Wealth, on the other hand, feels morally complex. It brings envy, distance, misunderstanding, and many people cannot tolerate that psychologically. Machiavelli warned that those who seek to remain pure will be destroyed by those who are not. This does not mean becoming corrupt. It means becoming realistic about human nature. Money changes how people look at you, talk to you, approach you. If you crave equality, wealth will disturb you. If you crave belonging, wealth will isolate you. So people self-correct, downward. They underprice. They overgive. They stay small. And then they tell themselves a comforting lie. Money is not important. But psychology reveals the truth. Money is not unimportant. Powerlessness is painful. Another hidden pattern. Most people confuse self-worth with effort. They feel valuable when they are busy, exhausted, needed. Wealth threatens this identity. If money comes easily, what does that say about your suffering? Was it unnecessary? That question is terrifying. So the mind protects itself. It rejects ease. It distrusts leverage. It romanticizes struggle. Machiavelli would call this dangerous sentimentality, because systems do not reward sacrifice, they reward effectiveness. Effectiveness often looks unfair, asymmetrical, cold, and this clashes violently with the identity of the virtuous striver. Let me slow this down. If your self-image is built on endurance, you will resist efficiency. If your self-image is built on humility, you will resist visibility. If your self-image is built on morality, you will resist negotiation. And every resistance has a price. Wealth requires psychological permission. Permission to charge more. Permission to disappoint. Permission to outgrow people. Most adults never give themselves that permission. They wait for external validation, for someone to say, "Now you are allowed." That moment never comes. Machiavelli understood this brutally. Power is taken, not granted. And before power is taken externally, it must be claimed internally. This is why affirmations do not work. This is why motivation fades, because identity always wins. If you see yourself as small, every big move will feel wrong. If you see yourself as secondary, Every primary decision will feel selfish, and so you self-sabotage, politely. Another uncomfortable truth. Many people fear wealth because it removes excuses. When you are poor, failure can be blamed on circumstances. When you are wealthy, failure becomes personal. Responsibility increases, and responsibility is heavier than poverty for many minds. Psychology calls this fear of authorship. To be wealthy is to admit, I am the cause of my rise, of my fall. No one taught you how to carry that weight. Machiavelli would say, most men prefer dependency with comfort over autonomy with risk, and so they stay dependent. Let me say something slowly. If you do not redefine who you are allowed to be, money will never stay with you. You cannot build a new financial life on an old psychological identity. This is why advice fails. This is why systems fail. The problem is not knowledge. It is self-perception. And this leads to the final, most dangerous principle. People who grow wealthy stop asking, what kind of person should I be? And start asking, what kind of outcomes must I create? This shift feels ruthless. It feels cold, but it is honest. Machiavelli was not teaching cruelty, he was teaching clarity. And clarity is the beginning of freedom. In the next part, we will bring all of this together and confront the final truth about money, power, and why most people never escape the role they were psychologically trained to play. That truth does not motivate, it reorganizes you. There is a final rule, and once you understand it, everything reorganizes itself quietly inside you. Most people are not poor because they lack money. They are poor because they live inside roles they did not choose. This is the deepest Machiavellian insight of all. From a psychological standpoint, society assigns scripts early: worker, follower, supporter, reliable one, good one. And once you accept a script, the system rewards you only within that script. No matter how hard you work, the ceiling remains. Not because of conspiracy, but because roles must stay stable for systems to function. Machiavelli understood that power belongs to those who exit roles, not perfect them. Most adults spend their entire lives trying to be excellent inside a cage. And then they wonder why freedom never arrives. Let me say this clearly. If your income depends entirely on permission, you are not economically free, no matter the number. Permission from a boss, permission from clients, permission from markets you do not control. Wealth begins when permission is replaced by positioning. This is not about rebellion. It is about architecture. The wealthy do not ask for more within the role. They redesign the role, or step outside it entirely. Psychology explains why this is rare. Leaving a role creates identity death. You lose familiarity. You lose recognition. You lose the comfort of knowing who you are in the eyes of others. And humans fear identity loss more than financial loss. So they stay. They complain. They endure. They adapt. Machiavelli would say, endurance without strategy is submission. Another truth that hurts. Most people secretly want someone else to be responsible for their survival, even while complaining about control. This is dependency psychology. Freedom sounds attractive, until you realize it removes excuses. When you own outcomes, you also own failure. And so many people unconsciously sabotage independence. They avoid learning leverage. They avoid owning decisions. They avoid situations where results are visible, because visibility invites judgment, but money flows toward visibility. This is why those who control distribution, attention, or access accumulate wealth faster than those who produce quietly. Production without control leads to exhaustion. Control without production leads to collapse. Wealth lives in the balance. Machiavelli would never advise blind ambition. He would advise strategic placement. Be close to decision points. Be near information flow. Be difficult to bypass. This is psychological positioning. The poor ask, what skill should I learn next? The wealthy ask, where does money already move, and how do I intercept it? This is not greed. It is observation. Money leaves patterns, trails, habitual routes. Those who grow wealthy study flow, not effort. Here is something subtle. The wealthy are comfortable being misunderstood for long periods of time. They let results explain later. Most people demand immediate understanding. They explain, they justify, they defend, and in doing so they leak power. Silence, when intentional, is not weakness. It is compression. Pressure builds where explanation is absent. Machiavelli understood this instinctively. Those who talk too much reveal fear. Those who move quietly create uncertainty, and uncertainty forces respect. Another principle: wealth requires the ability to disappoint without apologizing excessively. This sentence alone disqualifies many people psychologically. They fear being seen as selfish, as cold, as changed. But change is the price. If everyone around you is comfortable with your choices, you are not moving upward. This is not arrogance, it is mathematics. Upward movement disrupts equilibrium. People who grow wealthy accept this early. They mourn it quietly and proceed anyway. The poor mind seeks harmony. The wealthy mind seeks alignment.
Harmony keeps relationships stable.
Alignment keeps direction stable. Machiavelli would say, choose direction over approval. Here is the final truth. Money does not reward morality. It rewards structure. Structure of decisions, structure of risk, structure of boundaries. If your life has no structure, money will pass through you like water. This is why sudden income disappears. Why raises never change lifestyles. Why effort never compounds. Psychology teaches us that systems, not intentions, create outcomes. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. Good intentions make you likable. Good systems make you free. And freedom is always misunderstood by those who do not have it. Let me end this calmly. You are not poor because you are lazy. You are not poor because you are stupid. You are poor because you were trained to be safe, predictable, and compliant. And those traits, while morally praised, are financially punished. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it. And once you stop trying to be a good participant and start becoming a strategic actor, money stops being a mystery. It becomes a consequence. This is Psychology Unlocked. I am Dr. Adam, and now you know what most people never dare to look at.